your time. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting early, go through some of the early reports that we actually have for fire, police, library, and hopefully by the time we get enough members for a quorum, we'll come back and officially approve the agenda and the minutes and then go from there. So hopefully that's respectful of your time and hopefully get us rolling. So right now it's just a little after 6, and with that, we're going to go directly into the fire report, please.
Good evening, my name is Matt Bowen, Battalion Chief of Wichita Fire Department. Yes.
Thank you.
Matt Bowen, Wichita Fire Department, Battalion Chief. District 1 this past month had a little over 500 incident calls with 22 being fire alarms. The total loss from the FIU for the previous month was a little over 20,000. Recently, we've had some calls that you really need to be aware of. On Friday, it wasn't in District 1, but out west, a citizen lost her life. Essentially, the car was left running in the garage. They did not have CO detector that alerted them. So this was a preventable tragedy. What I'd like for you to know is the Wichita Fire Department, we have a smoke detector, CO detector program. There's handouts closed before you doze fact sheet that has contact information and also tells about fire safety, things that you can do in your home that'll help protect you. Along those lines, you know, the fire service has really changed in the last 30 to 40 years, and what's burning has changed. These things on this fact sheet can extend the time that you need to survive to allow us to get there, because your fire department, we're here for one reason, that's for you. That's why we exist. The big fire trucks and the hose lines, all that stuff, the reason we have those is so we can do a search for you. Yesterday morning at 1:34 a.m. in southwest Wichita, just outside the edge of District 1, fire crews responded to a house fire, and they rescued a female occupant that was trapped in her house. She was non-responsive. When they located her, they pulled her out. From entry time until they located her and pulled her out, less than 2 minutes. They're very professional, and that's the way your fire department is trained. She came out, she wasn't breathing. Before she left the scene, transported by EMS, she was upgraded and from a code blue, which is not breathing, to a triage red, which is critical. I got an update about 3 hours ago, and she's progressing nicely, and they're hoping today that they're going to be able to pull the tube out, the breathing tube out. So your fire department is there for you. That's why we exist. One other quick thing I'd like to talk about is Rescue Company 2 out of Station 10 here on 21st. Rescue Company 2, that apparatus has just arrived in this neighborhood. Currently staffing at that firehouse is 5. When we get all the tools on, and we're anticipating in the next week or 2 to get that apparatus on track. Your Station 10 over here is your hazmat station. It's also a technical rescue station, but it's it'll become Rescue Company 2. Another firefighter will be there, and it's going to help protect your district that much better. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Do you have any questions, fire related or anything on your mind?
Any questions from the board?
I'd really encourage you to take these home and share it with your family. And next time we come, I'll bring more.
Thank you. Did you have a question? No. Okay. Any questions from the public? All right. Thank you very much for your service.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. So let's go ahead and move into police.
All right, I'm Officer start, work up north, 44 beat primarily. I don't have much to tell you. I'm going to touch on a couple things. One, we have had an uptick in auto thefts out of Patrol North, mainly 44 beat, which is 21st and Grove back to the south of 13th. That little section there. I did the numbers today. I checked all of them. Probably about 80% of them are preventable. So people are still leaving their cars running, still leaving keys in the cars. With that, it's kind of hard for us to track who's doing it because they're just crimes of opportunity, and they're just going up. So what we need to be doing is not warming our cars up. It's going to get cold again overnight and in the morning, so I anticipate we'll have another round of auto thefts in the morning. We usually do on cold nights. If you're going to warm them, keep them in the garage, put the garage door up a little bit and lock them. Have another key if you have to warm them up. Obviously, we don't recommend it, but I know you don't want to get in a cold car, I get it. Secondly, we had a good catch on January 18th. We picked up a gang member on a traffic stop. On his person was a firearm using NIBIN, which is the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. We brought that to Wichita. It's now locally, so we can get it done quicker. We ran the gun and the ballistics through NIBIN. We were able to track that back to 3 different cases. 2 of them stemming back from November, where 7 different guns were used. That gun was one of them. And then one just more recently in December. All of those were check shots calls. One of them had 82 casing shots. So we did find one of the guns from it and one of the individuals that was attached to that gun. He's currently holding in his jail cell right now for that, awaiting what's coming next. On that note, we've obviously had an uptick in drive-bys up on the north side. We had the repeat at 1500 North Poplar, and then we had 2300 North Prince, and then 2400 North Estelle on Friday night, which was pretty big. The officers were there pretty quick. The good thing about that is people are now starting to call, so to say something that's out there is actually getting around. So we're starting to narrow down that field, so that's great. Keep calling, keep calling, keep calling. We do have some leads on those, but the victims are pretty uncooperative. We do have a current gang feud between Crips and Junior Boys up north. That's what it's related to. Detectives kind of have an idea. They're still searching for who is involved, but they're not getting a lot of cooperation as a victim, which leads to a cold case until we get cooperation. On that note, what would help us, since all these victims don't want to help us, start looking into Ring doorbells or some type of video doorbell or video camera, not only to protect your house, but to protect your neighbors. We're in this neighborhood together, so you guys protect your neighbor. You get a Ring doorbell, it's going to help us catch who left that scene, because it's not just the house and the target that they're hitting. They hit 3 houses on Estelle. Those 3 houses were not involved, so they didn't even hit the target house. So that's what we have. Lastly, we've seen an uptick in abandoned vehicles that people aren't calling in. There's a couple of ways you can call us in. Broken windows theory, we don't want abandoned vehicles just sitting around. People think that the neighborhood starts declining once they allow that, and they allow structures to go unoccupied. So if you're seeing abandoned vehicles for weeks at a time, your eyes, we go through the neighborhood, but we can't tell if it's moves. I mean, the obvious 3 flat tires and no tag, we can probably spot that one. But if they're sitting there and they look like they've been running, we're probably not gonna know. So let us know, get it on the board so we can get it out of your neighborhood. So does anybody have questions for Up North? The board?
Questions from the board? Any from the public?
Are you able to recover any of these cars? You think they're being chopped up and taken out of state?
For the auto thefts?
Yeah.
The ones that are like the Hondas, because we still get a couple of Hondas with shaped keys, those are probably going to out for parts. Most of them are still being recovered with Cadillac converters being missing or parts off of them being missing just for parts, but they're not taking the chop shop. Because metal isn't what it used to be right now, so it's all for parts. So we'll find them on the street, or they're just taking them and driving them because when you walk by it and you're walking to wherever you have to go and there's a car running, it's easier just to get in and drive it 23 blocks that you gotta walk, so that's more important than we find.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for your service.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Chris Crispin. Larry Carlson usually comes to this meeting. He got promoted, so I'm the new Larry Carlson, for better or worse. I'm actually the downtown beat officer, and next week I will be the old town beat officer. I'm moving over. Southside's pretty will remain the same. We did have a uptick in larceny to auto, people getting their cars broken into. We continue to ask, please don't leave anything of value in your cars. They'll cause $150 worth of damage to your window just to get your 87 cents in the cup holder. I did think that we had a auto theft hotspot in the Old Town, downtown area. It turns out that those were just people that misplaced their cars, came back the next morning, and recovered them all. To tell you the truth, that's the kind of hotspot that I like to investigate. So, that's really all I have. With that, I'll take your questions.
Very good. Any questions from the DAB? Seeing none, any from the public? Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
My name is John Meyer. I'm the 38 beat officer. I'm representing East Side tonight. We had a couple of subs called in. Allie Larison was scheduled to be here. She was double booked. Another person stepped in and started feeling under the weather, so they called me this afternoon. I looked at all of District 1's crimes, and it was overwhelming for the past month. There was 55 to 65 burglary to motor vehicles, or larceny to autos, as we call them. We get a lot of those taken over the phone. The more information we can get, the better. I've been doing follow-up on those pretty much nonstop for the past few weeks. Out east, we have a person of interest who, in the past, has been basically a special project for a few officers. He was caught, charged, convicted for several property crimes, paid his debt to society, and for whatever reason, he quit his job and he's back at it again. So he's become a special project for us. He's under our surveillance. This afternoon, I followed up on a break-in out at the Village Inn at Harry and Rock, and a card was instantly used at Dillon's 21st and Rock, and who do I see, but there's our buddy and there's his car. So we have one person of interest right now. That's one out of probably hundreds that commit these crimes. He's got kind of a special thing that he does, and there's no rhyme or reason to the time of day. The rest of them are similar to what you see all over the city, crime of opportunity. People leave their cars unlocked. Waiting to get video, a pharmaceutical rep had thousands of dollars worth of stuff taken out of her car over lunch, and it was unlocked. 2020, Acura SUV, brand new, unlocked door. Took 10 seconds to steal her stuff and nobody saw it. I mean, it's what people are doing out there. Most of us don't notice it because we feel like if you're bold enough to open the door and get into a car, you belong to it, it's yours. Turns out from following this one individual, that's not the case. He knows he'll get away with it and has for a long time. So it takes a little special focus from us, but that's one thing we're doing to try to combat that. The one specifically to my beat don't seem to be him right now, the way he's striking. And the similarity just seems to be opportunistic stuff. The doors are unlocked. I've got video footage of some, and they're just checking doors, looking for certain things, usually things that can't be traced. So we always recommend protect yourselves, don't leave your valuable stuff out there. Lock your doors, park in light, park in the driveway if you can, rather than the street. If you gotta park in the street, hopefully you got some light covering your car. Anything that makes it easier for your neighbors and you to see things, that helps us because it makes you a harder target, so they move on. That's really my spiel for the week. That's all I've been staring at for a while, so it's kind of what's on my brain.
Very good. Any questions from the DAB? Any from the public? Thank you very much for your service.
You bet. And I don't know if you noticed, for February we can have beards, so I'm sure they'll like your feedback, good or bad. I know it's been an uphill battle with the chief to try to get some facial hair, so you'll see some scraggly guys out there. It's supposed to be groomed, so keep us in check, make sure we're trimming.
Very good. Thank you. Awesome. So before we go into the library, the original beginning of the meeting, real quick, do we have an approval of the agenda that we've kind of already started? Has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Move it into the minutes. I'd be happy to go ahead and entertain a motion associated with minutes.
Motion to approve?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. With that, we're going to go back to the library report.
branch manager over at the Maya Angelou Northeast Branch. 3 announcements from me today. Downloadable e-audiobooks are now circulating on Wichita eReads, which is the library's digital collection. We've had e-books that you can download to your phone or tablet that you can read. Now we have audiobooks that you can download to your smartphone or your tablet and listen to. The app is called Libby. You can get it in your app store. Use your library card. You can access that collection and download up to 5 ebooks at a time to either listen to or read, or a combination thereof. So that just launched about a week ago. I haven't heard, I actually haven't tried to download an audiobook yet, but I use the ebooks app and it's real easy. So if you're an audiobook fan, you should check that out. Next week, Tuesday, February the 11th, we will hold our next community story time at 6:30 p.m. at the Angelou Branch. This month, we will have Priska Barnes from Storytime Village, and she will read Sit In, How 4 Friends Stood Up by Sitting Down, which is a book about the Greensboro Four. After the story, children will make a craft of peace doves that we will hang in the library. And finally, on Saturday, February the 22nd, children ages 6 to 10 will celebrate Mo Willems' birthday. The program is called I Am Invited to a Party, 2:30 at the Angelou Northeast Branch. If you have kids, you probably know the name. Mo Willems is an American writer and animator best known for his characters including Pigeon, as in Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, Knuffle Bunny, and Elephant and Piggy. And that's all I've got for you.
Very good. Quick question, you mentioned Libby, the app, L-I-B-B?
Libby.
Okay.
It's, the company is called Overdrive, if that helps you find the app, but it's Libby.
Okay,
There's a link right on the front page of that Wichita eReads.
there we go. Thank you. Any other questions from the DAB? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Thank you very much. With that, we'll go into Park and Rec.
I'll read that when I go up.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and address that later. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into the public agenda. There are no scheduled items here. With that, question on item number 6, are there any off-agenda items that were not mentioned previously that someone would like to talk to? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move into item number 7, council member updates and announcements.
I'll go to the podium.
Remember to state your name and address.
Or title.
I will do that. Good evening. I am Brandon Johnson for the record. My address is right here, right now. Atwater Neighborhood Rec Center. I did want to jump in before I do that to highlight some things from Park and Rec. I do have that report. Due to the incredible success of Lynette Woodard's Sunday Ninja Warrior fitness class for ages 3 to 5, staff had to create another class to deal with the high demand and overwhelming participants in the waiting list. Both classes generated 23 participants in the class with a waiting list of 11. Average revenue there was $345, so that was a great success. Another success is the new climbing wall that's over there at Lynette Woodard as well. There's a junior climbers class. That class is held on Sunday afternoons for tots ages 3 to 5. That program was popular and they're doing more with that as well. Also, there's a new martial arts class led by Tora Lawson, and it's Japanese swordsmanship, edge weapon defense, and something I cannot pronounce, so I'm gonna butcher it. So that's going on there, and it's great to see these new programs over at Lynette Woodard, again, offering our young people more than just the normal basketball and football. These are pretty cool opportunities. Edgemore is having a lot of success, 38 various classes for the winter session. Only 3 of those have been canceled today due to insufficient enrollment. And Linwood is doing well as well. Saturday morning pickleball is now averaging 20 players. on a regular basis. This is something I've also heard about a lot at Edgemont. Pickleball is becoming much more popular. They also have archery classes, and some unfortunate news, they were broken into as well the night of January 28th. But police will jump on that to help out. Those are park and rec updates. For me, just want to give a couple things. We switched this around because I normally give my updates at the end when everybody's gone. So we're doing it now while the folks are here. I do want to call your attention to Census 2020. So this is a census year. It's really important. Make sure you take the census. If you're looking for employment or secondary employment, you can get that as well. If you have your smartphone, you can text right now 313131 Kansas Jobs, and you'll get a link back within 30 seconds on how to apply for a job. You can do that right now. Aside from that, we have flyers in the back with website and other ways to get employment opportunities. But the census is really important, and the area we're in right now, District 1, underreported 10 years ago. And it's a big area that underreported. And what that means is we lose federal dollars that come into the city of Wichita and the state of Kansas when we underreport. And when I say underreport, there are parts of this district that underreported by 90%.
Wow.
So that means that we have to make sure we get our neighbors on board and we talk to people and make sure that they actually take the census. It really does help us. It's gonna be important with redistricting, because if one district shows a lot of growth and another one doesn't, we've got to change boundaries. So we wanna make sure we count everybody so that we can have the best process possible. Riverfront Legacy Master Plan, I wanna keep highlighting, that's out there. We're interested in feedback, so if there's things you like about it, things you don't like about it, please let us know. You can do that by talking to me. I prefer email so I can have something back to refer to, not just a vocal conversation, as well as reaching out to the partnership or Evan Roselle. Please let us know what you think. And again, I want to continue to highlight that with that plan, it will go out to a vote, because we can't afford to tear down Century 2 without a vote. We can't afford to not tear down Century 2 and renovate it without going out for some type of public help on a sales tax. So no matter what, the public will have a say on those phases. And phase 1 can actually build a brand new performing arts center without touching Century 2. So I want to always continue to put that information out there. You may have heard differently. You can go to the website right now and see it broken down in phases. And phase 1 allows you to have a brand new performing arts center without touching Century 2, which gives you more time to consider that. In regard to District 1 appointments, I will be making appointments here in the next month or so, either reappointing folks or appointing people. So if you're interested in serving on any of the various citizen boards, please go to the website, fill out the application. You can let me know, but I'm gonna send you back to the website anyway to fill out the application so that I can make the best decision on who can serve on these different boards. I tend to reach out and talk to you anyway about your position on that board to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into and what you're looking for as far as serving on those boards. So that will happen. I've reached out to Dab already. I'll be reaching out to everybody else to see who wants to continue serving, who doesn't, and then look at the applications of those who have applied. So hopefully you do. 3 more things real quick. Saturday we had our District 1 breakfast at the new YMCA on Innovation Campus. Beautiful facility. We had at least 60 people in attendance, so it was a really good turnout, really good information. And we talked about the census, the riverfront, and the water treatment plant. Really good informational piece about the water treatment plant. So please go check out the Y. It is in District 1, and we had a great breakfast. Many of you heard from the last meeting the complaints from Lambsdale about the 200-foot reporting and what we're gonna do about that. They had their January meeting, which was not enough time for us to get together for that, but they meet quarterly, so we will show up in April. I will invite each of you to that so that you can hear those concerns, and we'll have legal staff there as well, so we can try to work out a solution. Last 2 things I want to highlight. It is Black History Month here, and we heard about the Greensboro 4. Please tell everybody that the first sit-in actually happened in Wichita. The Dockham sit-in in 1958. The Greensboro sit-in was in 1960. It's 2 years difference. So Wichita was number 1 in that, and a lot of the members of the original Dockham sit-in are still alive, and many are here in Wichita. So definitely want to highlight that. And then lastly, Art That Touches Your Heart is an annual event that happens at Wichita State. This year, it is this Friday at 6 p.m. over in the RSC. And you can go up there now and look at the local artists and some folks from around the country that have their art up throughout the RSC. This is one of the few times you go into a space and you see a collection of black art here in Wichita. And they do this every year. Pretty powerful and great art pieces.
Flyers back here.
And there's a flyer back there for that as well. So I will stand for any questions from either the DAB or the community.
Any questions from the DAB? Any questions from the public?
Man, I wish all speaking engagements were like this.
All right, with that, we'll go. Yeah, there we go. We're going to move into new business, item number 8. Scott, will you lead us off?
Good evening, I'm Scott Knable with the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Item 8 is a request for rezoning SF5 single-family residential and MS29 multifamily residential to the B multifamily residential district on multiple properties located south of Wichita State University. The properties are between 17th Street and 16th Street on the front. Yale, Harvard, Gentry, Bluff, and Fountain. The neighborhood itself has been for many years a neighborhood that has supported student housing, and the request that is before you today would continue to evolve that neighborhood and the way in which it supports that housing. Much of the neighborhood over the years has seen changes that have supported more multifamily development, including a project in the vicinity of this request that's under construction right now. And so the applicant is requesting that the multiple properties that they own on these 5 streets be zoned B multifamily, which is allows the greatest flexibility in the development of multifamily residential primarily for support for student housing. And the applicant is here today and has a presentation to show you that will give you greater detail on the nature of their request. In terms of conformance to adopted plans and policies, the site itself is located in an area that is identified in the comprehensive plan for residential employment mix, and so it was anticipated at the time that plan was developed that there would be some transition in use in this area. Residential employment mix is an area where you see a mixture of residential and commercial uses. The nature of this application would just be to support residential uses, but we've seen other applications recently in this same area where there have been zone changes to support commercial and mixed-use applications. So I think we can anticipate that there's going to continue to be change in this area immediately across the street from the Wichita State campus. The other thing that's identified in the comprehensive plan is that this area is within the established central area, which was identified in Wichita's urban infill strategy as an area where infill redevelopment is a major policy goal, trying to take better advantage of the areas in which we already have infrastructure and services provided to provide higher levels of development and redevelopment as areas change over time. And one of the strategies is to consider favorably requests such as this that would promote that redevelopment. The Planning Commission heard this item and based on recommendation of staff in the public hearing, recommended approval. We're recommending here to you today to recommend approval as well. And the findings are on page 3 and 4 of the staff report that support that recommendation. I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Scott from the board? Very good. If the applicant would like to address us.
Good evening, Brian Lindeback, 411 North Webb Road, MKC Engineering on behalf of the owner and applicant. I do have a short presentation. It's really just a meant to give you some context, some additional context. So
And remember, you can take the mic if you don't want to stand right there, you just take it off.
okay, very good. There we go. I think this presentation is just really just to kind of amplify a little bit what we're up to here.
Try to wrap it around the stand, if you want to unwrap it or
Which one?
the stand, the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Stand.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Yeah, could be an embarrassing moment there. Something to remember.
Can you see okay? Yeah.
Okay, very well. This is much like a previous presentation I gave you about, not quite a year ago. These parcels that have the black outlines are the subject parcels. The green background here is the existing zoning, and it's multifamily 29. We're looking to increase that zoning to what you see here is B multifamily. It just allows for a little bit more density. And then, of course, SF5, we have some SF5 parcels over here. That's one of the more restrictive single-family zonings, so we're looking to change that to what's across the street and to the north, and generally what's around it. I think Scott did an excellent job of encapsulating essentially what is what's looking like a continued project around this area. The developer I'm working with, I'll try to look at you every once in a while, but it's hard to run the mouse and look at you at the same time. The developer is kind of looking at, this is a westerly boundary, and then Bluff/Fountain as a easterly boundary of their redevelopment efforts. If you're familiar with the area and have been over there recently, you'll notice that there's some new units going in here. This is just another slide that kind of gives you overall context of what is available in this area as far as other zonings. I won't necessarily sit on that slide too long unless we need to come back to it. There is a substantial amount of signs put up for these two cases. We definitely have notified a lot of folks, so I think we've gone out and pulled all those signs down, but there was, I think, 18 signs. So we did have a neighborhood meeting last week. This was sent out to the ownership list, which is what you see in here in red. These are folks that actually attended where they live. I think it was really a good meeting, I think, and it really, one of the questions of us was, well, what do you want us to do? And it really is just to have a conversation and get to know each other, let everybody know what we're thinking, and just to have that continued dialogue. This was the notification list. Our invite list for that neighborhood meeting was about 77 postcards. We also dropped some postcards off at the coffee shop here. Yeah, I think there's there's more than 77, but a lot of them were repeat owners, so. I don't know if we need to go into detail on the golden rules. One thing I think that I'll kind of skip to the end a little bit on the list here is, but I think it's really important to note that this is a privately funded project for local investors in Wichita. And I think that's a really important aspect of this, is that it's local money with local faces and you know, circulating those improvements back into the community. As you know, there's some properties that probably are a little bit vacant or a little bit outdated. So that one of the goals of this is to rehab and revitalize some of the units that are over there. And I'd say most of them are being occupied by students, but you know, the goal of this is not to just have student housing. It is open for you know, just regular you know, renters. So I've got some comprehensive plan slides here coming up, but I think we're just gonna stay with status quo. There's some buildings nearby that are 3 stories. We're anticipating the same. I think there could be a future where we might do 4, but not with I don't think we're planning to do 4 with this zone change. The building height is really a component of parking, and, I think while we have, our owner has a lot of property in this area, we haven't quite come up with a plan that nails down what we're doing just next. But, so this is a picture of the comp plan. I don't know that we need to necessarily zoom in and check it out, but, this brown area here with the cross hatching is, new residential employment opportunities, and then new residential. So just like Scott said, it's, anticipating, change here. And this blue outline is that central core that he was mentioning. There we go. And as I fumble around here, this is WSU shuttle system. Again, I'm not gonna spend much time here, but just goes to show there's a robust investment has happened in this area. Not only shuttles, but also public transit, which you'll see here on the next. There's public parking or private parking with the WSU campus. That's been one of the questions we had at the neighborhood meeting, as well as planning commission. It's just a concern for parking. The property is proposed to have all secured parking, so what we have on site for the units will serve just the units themselves. This is just another benefit here that we have this Wichita Transit System. They're running folks all over, but we have a stop right across. I think Councilman Johnson was saying that he's going to evaluate that a little bit further and make sure that the stop is where it needs to be. If I'm not right. Certainly, there's been some new additions to the bike lanes. I think everybody recognizes the sharrows on the pavement, where you share the road with cyclists on 17th. This map, actually, I forgot to tell you on that previous map, there's some plans to possibly put in a crosswalk here. It was, at least as proposed on that old bicycle plan. It seemed old, but 2013 seemed like getting a little bit old. But certainly we'll be working with the planners and the campus and others that need to be involved when that time comes to make that connection over to the campus to connect this area. There's that bike plan. So this is a rendering of the units that are being built today. I suspect that as the development pushes on, it'll have this same architectural theme. Not necessarily exactly the same theme, but I think there's a goal to keep some continuity in the neighborhood. And as you can see, we've got some colors that are has some school pride going on there. Here's a look from Gentry and then 17th here. So this is looking generally south and west. They do have their own management company. It's 17th Management. So if you know someone needs some housing, that's a good resource to get a hold of. I think they're still filling these up right now, but I think it'll certainly, I'm sure it will be full here. One thing I'd say is, as far as the number of units, they have about 150 units in this area currently. This project that you're seeing right behind me is gonna add another 150 units. So with this area, we're gonna see a jump in population, at least of their tenants, about that 150. I think you could look at similar numbers as the project progresses. But we don't have exact plans on where we're gonna progress next, but I think it's probably likely that it would be more towards the western end of those streets that I was showing you earlier. yeah, I think we had a good meeting with the neighborhood. I see some familiar faces from that meeting here tonight. And with that, I'll just answer any questions you have.
Very good. Any questions? And just from a general process, we'll first go ahead and start with questions from the DAB, and then we'll go ahead and go ahead and have the public go ahead and have the opportunity to ask questions there. DAB members, if you have questions of the public, at least for right now, I'd ask you to go ahead and kind of take those down, and then we'll come back to that at a later point in time. So, starting off, are there any questions of the applicant?
I've got a question. So, will it be a mixture of like duplexes and fourplexes and townhomes and apartment buildings, or is this just primarily larger apartment buildings?
Well, what we're looking for is B multifamily here. So what we anticipate is going to be moving from fourplexes that we currently have into the more apartment-directed arena. You know, they've got units that are four-bedroom units, as well as 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and studios. Right now, part of the idea before we get going on the next project is to see what the proper mix is, what people want. And so, instead of building something that we think is right, we're gonna let some market demand dictate that. So if that helps, I don't think we're gonna be putting in duplexes. It will stick strictly to be the apartments.
I'm sorry.
Can you clarify that some of those duplexes will be coming?
Pardon me?
Can you clarify some of those duplexes will be coming back to current?
Sure. Let me go back to that first slide.
This is part of your answers, I think.
Yeah. So these are generally fourplexes on this side, and these are single-family homes over here. These would likely get integrated in with that existing project over here. And then some of these over here, I don't know that we have any direct plans until we accumulate more of a cohesive ownership in the area. But certainly the developer continues to acquire properties in the area. But yeah, these are mostly fourplexes on this side.
That will go away.
That's right. That would be the anticipation is we'd remove those and rebuild.
Mr. Thompson?
Does this, am I looking at this correctly, that with this zone change, we're looking at affecting like 22 properties?
I haven't counted them up lately, but that, I'm not sure if that's exactly an accurate count, but that's probably fairly close.
So Donna?
I can see that, let's see. See it on here. Well, it's left. Are those, empty lots in between those, the proposed areas for rezoning on, off of Bluff? Like between 16 and 17? Or are those existing homes?
And those are all existing homes, yeah, and some of them are being rented out. I think, Tyler, most all of them are being rented out right now.
Some of them are not structurally sound, but I'd say half of those are being rented out.
Yeah.
Are these apartments, buildings that you're gonna put in, are they gonna be key to a specific group of people, or it's gonna be open to basically the general public?
It's open to the general public. Certainly, with it being so close to campus, I think there's a anticipation there will be a lot of students there, but it's not restricted in any way to any individuals.
Well, the only reason why I was asking, I noticed that one of the projects up in that area was basically key towards students. That was the only reason why I was asking that question.
No, this one won't necessarily be keyed in just for students. There's 4-bedroom units, which, like, for example, if someone wasn't renting all 4 bedrooms, I think it would just remain locked. But yeah, it's not specific to the student housing. So I think that's an important thing to key in on. One thing I would mention, I didn't bring any of the pictures, but we shared them at our neighborhood meeting, is we have some material photos. It shows the materials. The materials are gonna be fairly, industrious and high-end, granite and, you know, really nice cabinetry, built to last is what the idea is there. It is market rate housing, so, I think we had some questions about the cost of what the units will be, and I figure I might as well share that. I think, the low 600s for the, studio, I think the studio is roughly 600-700 square feet, somewhere thereabouts. So, I know you didn't ask that question, but I figure we're gonna get there.
Cool.
So those renters, did any of those people come to the meeting that you, had people come to?
And I don't know if they were renters, but,
Or those residents in a specific area was talking about?
yeah, this next slide this is, you know, all the different addresses of folks that showed up to our meeting. We had about 11 folks show up out of the 787 postcard, so I'd say that's pretty good. That's pretty good turnout. I mean, it's hard to get people to turn out to come to meetings, so I thought that was a good turnout.
Are there any other questions from the DAB?
I have one other question. Did you get a favorable response back from the neighborhood association?
We didn't, I mean, Tyler, you were at the neighborhood association. I might grab Tyler up here. Tyler Ellis is with the development company. You attended the neighborhood association?
I actually didn't attend it. Jessica did though, with our management company. She said it was all positive, yeah. She didn't have anything, didn't say anything that was negative, so. Everybody here was there, but said it was good.
All right, thank you.
And to your point, I think you were talking about Aspen Heights probably, the student housing property northeast of campus. And yeah, they're all student housing by the room. We're not, we have a mixture of studios, 1s, 2s, and 4s. We're a little more market rate than they are. They're completely geared towards students. We're not completely that way. So.
Thank you.
We're good. Any other questions from the DAB? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move it out to the public. If you'd like to go ahead and speak, ask a question, we'd ask that you come up to the podium, state your name and address, and if you'd like to speak, we'll give you about 5 minutes or so, and I'll give you a little bit of a heads up before we get to that. First come, first serve. Mr. Roseborough.
Mr. Roseborough only has 30 seconds.
James Roseborough, 4518 Greenbrier. I'm surprised to see Fairmont Neighborhood Association, only 11 people showed up from that association. That's surprising, but that's not my question. If you had no feedback from the people, because I know that's the area that we've worked on, to improve the safety and all that up in that area. But I understood this, right? You did say it would be some type of employment opportunity. I'd like to know, what would that include? That's my question.
Well, that's certainly a question not for the DAB,
Yes,
but
no.
That's okay. Now or not? Yeah, so as far as employment opportunities, you know, the need for the property management group we're building, I suppose. You know, we're also talking about some retail in the area, maybe commercial, but, you know, that's really part of phase 3, which is kind of this middle piece that we're not really talking about right now. So it would kind of come in that phase.
okay. Anybody else from the public like to talk? Ask questions, please.
Brenda Stevenson, 4723 East 27th Street North. My question is, since this is a higher density, looks like a lot of cement, do you have any plans for a stormwater retention
plan? Yes, that will be part of our development plans. We'll have to abide by all the appropriate stormwater regulations. So they're fairly significant.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll get back to the DAB for discussion. Any thoughts?
I don't see a whole lot of information, so I say make a motion to pass as.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we'll go ahead and move into item number 9. Scott again.
It's Ken Scott Knable with Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Item 9 is another rezone request near Wichita State. This is at the southeast corner of 21st Street and Oliver. Subject property is currently developed with a church, and proposal is to redevelop the site, to demolish the church and develop it with commercial uses. There is a protective overlay that would address the permitted uses and other development standards that would be similar to things that have been approved recently for properties in the area, most specifically property to the north of this site. Of course, the area of this site is also very much impacted by Wichita State University, in this case by the Innovation Campus, which is developing to the west of the site. There are also along 21st Street here east of the campus a significant number of commercial uses consistent with the types of uses that would be permitted by this requested zone change, and those properties, for the most part, along 21st Street near this site are already zoned limited commercial. The subject property is identified in the comprehensive plan, again, as a site that is appropriate for residential and employment mix, and being located at the intersection of 2 arterial streets is the common location in this community for commercial uses. The site is also identified as an area that is within the established central area, so it's identified as an area where the comprehensive plan promotes infill development by supporting regulatory changes that would allow that development to occur. Staff's recommendation, this was approved by the planning commission at their last hearing, is to approve the request of limited commercial zoning with a protective overlay. The protective overlay would limit the uses that are permitted on the site and address many of the types of uses that have negative impacts on residential property. There's also limitations in that protective overlay as it relates to signage, lighting, screening, and pedestrian improvements. Recommendations based on the findings that are on pages 4 and 5 of your staff report, and that I'll stand for questions.
Any questions from the DAM? I have one related to item number 6 on page 3. Can you tell me a little bit more about the plan for pedestrian walk, why that's necessary, what's involved?
Well, the biggest thing behind that is that the area itself, being in close proximity to the campus, has a lot of destinations that people desire to get to without using an automobile. And so what the pedestrian walk system itself will do as it relates to this particular site is it will look at the way in which the building is oriented and its connections to the sidewalk system. That there's ways in which you can make those connections that are safer than others, and so that's what it will address, is the safety and convenience of pedestrian access to the building entrance from the sidewalk.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay. Is the applicant here as well?
Yes.
Oh, we'd love to hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Russ Avey, agent for the applicant with Baughman Company, 315 Ellis. I don't think I have much to add to the staff comments. There were 2 people in attendance at the planning commission meeting. One was an adjoining property owner and just was curious as to whether or not this application was going to see the light of day and be approved. I don't believe staff has received any other type of protest petition or anything like that. Kind of straightforward compared to the last time I was standing up here. Stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions of the applicant? All right, we're good. Public, do you have any questions? If anyone would like to speak on the issue, you'd be welcome to, please. Again, just a reminder, please state your name and address, and we'll give you 5 minutes.
Steve Falke, number 3 Crestview Lakes. Russo, just a quick question. I know there weren't any protest petitions tonight, but did you guys have any feedback from River Community Church or any of the folks involved over there?
Community church?
River Community, yes, the church that's right next to this.
There's a second church, if you're not familiar with the area, just immediately south across the street. We are both the only single-family residential zoning district at that intersection. South of the church is some general office zoning. I have not received any feedback. There was, prior to making the application, while we were working on this project initially, it had just been a passing conversation that it would be nice to have both churches under contract and have both churches come through the same application. That particular church had no interest in leaving, no interest in rezoning their property at this time. They didn't, so just a very light input from my client.
All right. Any other questions?
How much time do I have this time?
You can have 45 seconds.
James Roseborough, 4518 Greenbrier. Russ, I know you told us at MAPC you had a restaurant and possibly apartments, and what was the third thing that was possible they could put in that? Did you ever come up with what that might be?
No, sir. Yes. So I was asked at the planning commission meeting if there was, oftentimes, as you all know, there are times where we'll bring forward a project like Mr. Lindeback, where this is just one step towards a building permit. In this circumstance, there's just a lot going on in this intersection. The property is unzoned for its location, and so this is somewhat speculative in nature, but we did have my client is working with 3 individual uses, which are kind of all across the board. We had discussed a sit-down restaurant at this location, a student housing land use, as well, if those don't pan out, then something along the lines of a strip commercial center, if we can adjoin to properties to the east that are already zoned.
All right, very good. Any other questions from any direction? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for some discussion. Seeing none, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
A motion to approve.
Has been moved. There's a tie for second. You can choose. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. We will move into item number 10. Just for clarification, the agenda doesn't specify, but I believe we're just actually receiving information. Is that everyone's understanding?
That's correct. We're not asking for any information.
Very good.
Or any action this evening, just
Okay.
receive and file.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah. So my name is Don Henry. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities for the city. And, it's hard to believe that the calendar is already flipped to February of this year. And what that means for our stormwater division is that, there's a lot of work to do to prepare for the rainy season. That's right around the corner. We're another, winter storm, I think, is knocking on the door for tomorrow and the next day, but it's not gonna be long until March is here. And so then those storms kind of change over to rain, right? And we get in April and May, it really gets rolling. And for a lot of folks, that means the nuisance street flooding season is right around the corner. And Northeast Heights neighborhood is one of those areas. Now, I've talked to some of you folks about Northeast Heights in the past, and so we're familiar with what some of those challenges are there. But that also means that you know, we have a lot of work to do to make sure that, what limited amount of infrastructure is there is working as good as it can be. And so Joe Hickel, our acting stormwater engineer, is going to kind of share with you a list of things that we've been doing in the Northeast Heights neighborhood associated to get ready for this rainy season. And then Bleckley, you know, when we talk about the Bleckley drain and you talk about street flooding, that's a whole nother animal right there, right? You know, literally, if you look at Bleckley Street, you know, that's the old Dry Creek channel. That used to be a creek before there was a city here. And so because of that location and the area that drains, and because of the topography, you know, well, the water all runs right there to Bleckley, and then it wants to get out of there as fast as it can, and it rolls downhill down that old creek channel. And what's different about Bleckley is that it's not just nuisance street flooding. But if you've been there, if you're familiar with that, and I know some of you have because you've exchanged some stories with me in the past. And I've actually gone down there to look at that and witness it. And I kind of witnessed some similar things in the city that I used to live in Texas, where some folks got in trouble and had to be rescued and were almost, you know, it could have been a really bad situation. But when you look at Bleckley, that's what we're looking at, you know. I've been there when it's raining and the water's rolling down the street to talk to some neighbors that are there, and it's like, yeah, well, you know, we like to come out and watch the water, but every once in a while, you know, a car will wash by type thing. And so, you know, the only reason I say that is for folks that haven't seen that. If you're experiencing nuisance type street flooding, or maybe you get some high water, and even if you drive in there with your car and your car stalls out, well, your car's still there when the water goes back down, Bleckley, your car will be gone if you drive into that. So it's very different. And it's at the top of our list in terms of, you know, major drainage improvements and drainage projects. That was far and above all the rest in terms of our priorities because of those safety issues. The challenge is the scope of work that will be required to make the type of difference we're looking for and the cost that will be. And Joe will share some of this with you. The funding is a challenge there. But that doesn't mean we're just doing nothing. We've taken some time to kind of look at what an outcome-based approach would look like in terms of, you know, dry streets, I don't think are ever gonna be an option there. But in terms of getting the water down to a level where it's safe, you know, where you've got some street flooding, but you're not gonna get washed away if you get into it, that's the kind of outcome we're looking for there. So Joe will share some work that he's done with some modeling to kind of come up with what a conceptual level approach might look like. And keep in mind that this is just a concept at this point, right? And one of the things that we want to do this year is to hire an engineering firm to take Joe's concepts, refine that, come up with some cost refinements so we can see if we're on the right track in terms of what the cost of this project's going to be. But that's kind of what we wanted to touch on tonight. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to our stormwater engineer, Joe Hickel, to kind of talk about that in detail.
Thank you, Don. We've got a series of boards here that I hope everybody can see, and I don't want to stand in your way.
Can you please grab the mic?
We're looking at, first off, the Northeast Heights neighborhood. And we have prepared some graphics here of the area on aerial photography. And I want you to focus on the red lines that you see on the map, or the lack thereof. You can see the immediate area of, this is the south half. We have 21st Street here, Oliver on this side, and on the little far end of there is Hillside Avenue. So wherever we see red, we have some storm sewer infrastructure, pipes, inlets, manholes, and you see a bunch down south of 21st Street. In this part of the area of your neighborhood, there's a general lacking of storm sewer systems in the street. And I want you to focus on that as you flip through these guys.
Joe, can we talk now for a second? Let's get visually everyone can see. Does that help?
So there's the south half, but I do want you to focus on the lack of storm sewer system. Over here, I've added a note that says south ditch. The area in here is heavily treed, and we've recently walked it, and we're looking for fallen logs or debris that would wash downstream and block culverts or bridges. We need your permission, the landowner's permission, to go on the property and pick that up. So we may be writing another batch of letter campaign to the residents, so that we get the legal right to go in and do some of that work on your property. So we're looking at that south ditch. Now we're going north half of your area. Again, all over here, hillside over here. Moved up from 21st, this is 27th right in here. Start to see the Chisholm Creek coming in. Again, you can see where we have storm sewer and where we don't. A lot of the area is absent of storm sewer in the street with inlets. On this one, I want you to tell you that what we've done, wherever we do have infrastructure, we've recently videoed it and cleaned it to make sure it's operating properly. And it is. We found one area out here on Holyoke, right over here. The end of the pipe discharging to the creek was broken, so we have that on our repair list. It's not blocking any flow, but it's on the list. It's a long list. So we've done that. But we don't see any flow restrictions. This next graphic is just, I call the far north. It's further up. You can see Hillsborough, or the Chisholm Creek coming in, K96. Up in here you see a little bit more infrastructure, but other areas where there's certainly a weakness of the density of red dots on the map. So we see that. Now, one thing else I just want to add to you, I've added a few more slides here to just blow it up in a little bit more detail, and now we're kind of looking at quadrants. We're in the northeast quadrant of your area, so you can picture where that is. Again, all over here, Bluff is over here, Hillside would be a little further over. We see a east ditch, there's an area coming up through here to Greenbrier. We've recently walked through this and cleaned out some underbrush and fallen logs a year or so ago. We want to look at that again. The best time to do that's in the winter. You can see what you're doing. You don't have poison ivy. You don't have ticks and chiggers. So this is the time of year we want to try to do that. But again, we'll have to get your permission, so we'll probably write letters to you again. The west ditch area was over here, north of Fountain. That we want to look at that. We've had two projects on our radar for some time. Back in 2014, we designed some box culvert improvements at Fountain and at Greenbrier, right there. We recently built the Fountain culverts. They were showing their age, and we had actual failure, and we had to do a patch job on it. But then the next year, which was last year, we've actually replaced that box culvert at Fountain. It cost us some $160,000. In that design package, we had a second pipe here at Greenbrier that is bubbling up on our priority list for next year, and that's going to be the cost of about $175,000. So there'll be a major improvement for the culvert system under Greenbrier right there at the east ditch. Let's see. I think those are the main things on this slide. Flip this one over. This is another quadrant of your area. This is the southwest quad. Some of these boards have been traveling around. Some of these notes here that you guys wrote on here when we met before, trying to get your commentary on areas where you do have some standing water or no standing water. There was no water here, but heavy water during rains. So we've got some history here, trying to work with you on understanding your information. But here again, you can see a lack of red storm sewer there and some over in here. So that is a continuing theme. Like when they built the development, there just wasn't as much infrastructure put in as we call for now in other areas of town. And lastly, to the northwest part of town, part of your area. I don't have any notes here, but you see one pipe here and a bunch without, so that kind of really tells the story again of, and as you drive your streets, think about that. If you can find an inlet, I'd like to know about it. So that was northwest, and this guy here is, I think, northeast, and it kind of similarly shows. This is University right down here at 21st. Some private pond system here, but again, there's a little bit of infrastructure on this backyards, but much area that we don't have it. So those are the key things. This lack of local infrastructure can lend itself for your action to look at the local petition process. If you have a benefit district defined and we want to add some infrastructure, it's on a petition process where you will eventually pay for it on specials or your taxes, but the city would undertake the design and construction of projects. But all of the money that we have in our budget for stormwater is for repair, replace and repair, not add new. So if I have a pipe that's broken, it's going on my list to fix it. We've asked the streets department to do something else, and that is to drive your streets and look for broken curbs and plug ditches or anything that would be causing the constriction of flow. They haven't got quite through all that yet, but they're working on it. They had a lot of snow and ice removal so far, so some elimination of staff available for this project, but we're working on that. So we want to see if there's any broken gutters or curbs on some of your street from upheavals during the summertime that could be contributing to blockage of flow. And some of that's a more easy fix that a street department could do. That's about it for the Northeast Heights. Then I wanted to move over to Bleckley just a little bit. Bleckley Drain is not in Northeast Heights. This is Kellogg. And top of the map is 13th Street with Claude Lamb Park right here. The red rectangle is the area of Bleckley Drain. From Waterman south is a concrete channel. You've probably seen it. It's falling apart. It really needs to be replaced. That's one element of the plan to make drainage improvements in the Bleckley area. That's some work that can be done more easily because you don't have as many utility conflicts with that open ditch as you might in the rest of the rectangle where we're talking about the improvement plan is to add large box culverts under the street at quite a price tag. I will jump next to Claude Lamb Park area where it was suggested, and it's really a pretty decent idea. Here's 13th Street, north is up. Water right now is in a confined ditch, goes through culverts and passes on down south into the Bleckley area, and the system can't take it. The pipes in the Bleckley drainage area are just too small. So one idea in this conceptual design plan is this is an open park right now, and I've talked with the Parks Department about how could we find some harmony here. And what we're thinking about is this could be a grass depressed area that's a dry pond, if you will. And we could engineer this so that the water could flood purposely in the park here during very heavy rains and restrict water temporarily from going south into the drainage system that it can't handle. So this is at the very top end of the problem. The channel is at the very down end of the problem. And everything else in the middle is in this red rectangle. So we're looking at a lot of box culvert in these streets, tearing up the entire road, utility conflicts with 13 sanitary sewer crossings, I don't know how many water line crossings. It's a big project. This project's of the magnitude of $30 to $35 million. So funding is a challenge, and all I can say is we're trying to consider how could this project be funded. And I don't think we have an answer yet, but, so with that, that's kind of the Bleckley wrap-up. You got three key elements. You got a concrete ditch at the bottom and a pond at the top, bunch of pipe work in the street. They could go over 3 or 4 or 5 years of construction time. It's a big enough project that it would probably be broken up into different phases, building a piece of it at a time. I kind of like to do the pond and the ditch at the bottom as one package, because it's pretty easy to get that done and there's some benefit for it. The rest of the work in the street is a nightmare. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Just from a process perspective, we're going to go ahead and have the questions here. We'll quickly go out to the public and we'll go from there. Any questions from the DAB?
So I've got a question. So you said that the problem is due to a lack of infrastructure and increased development. Are we continuing to add to that problem? Are we putting more onus on developers to remedy the runoff situation? And are the current policies in place, are they adequate to address additional problems?
Well, I think so. We have a stormwater design manual, and there was a question earlier about one of the other projects, and they would have a requirement to build a retention pond, just like the one in Clogland Park that I'm talking about. So that's in our stormwater manual, and any development that comes across my desk has got to meet those detention rules. And we require that. To the point of the lack of infrastructure in some of the streets, that's kind of the problem associated with long ago theory of stormwater and how things were done. We don't allow that anymore because we want to make sure that drainage can be handled appropriately and not injure the downstream property or even your neighbor. I see a lot of grading plans come in, and my comment always is, well, you're gonna have to tell me more about how you're not affecting your neighbor with your drainage here, because I see a problem, so let's fix it before you build it.
$35 million, how much is a life worth? I came close, real close to losing my daughter and one of your city fellow workers' daughter in that street. I would have gone after you for more.
I'm sorry.
I would have gone after you for more than 35 if I'd have lost her, because, Douglas was blocked off. It was clearly marked and warned. She decided to, not my daughter, the girl decided to go downstream, make the crossing. Oh, no crossings here, must be safe. You know, teenagers. Decided to go across, didn't make it. Then, ended up at the barrier down on the south end of that. Luckily to my daughter's decision, we can go around this, right? No, we better hit that. That's what's gonna save our life. And it did. And a trash can propped up underneath the car. Otherwise, they would have been overswarmed by the water, and that was that much.
John, you wanna address that?
You know, there's no amount of money that will replace a life. You know, we all know that, so you can't even compare the two. But your point is well taken and understood. You know, that's a situation that has to be addressed.
If you need any testimony to that effect.
Pardon me?
If you need any testimony to that effect, looking for the budget.
Right.
Going to these guys saying, hey, this has gotta be a problem that we gotta solve.
Yeah.
I'll come. You got my number.
Yeah. One of the challenges, and I know you know this because we've had this conversation, but other folks might not realize it. One of the challenges with stormwater is that it's an enterprise fund. And so the only revenue that feeds our renewal and replacement and our ability to fund projects is what comes in on that monthly bill for stormwater that you pay on your water bill, you know, based upon the amount of impervious surface you have on a lot, you know. And then there's $1.50 a month base fee that's included in that. So that's the revenue that we have to fund these projects. And so what we're talking about is trying to, you know, come up with a way where is there a reasonable blend of general obligation support to add to the stormwater utility to take on Bleckley?
If we
So
can,
those are some of the conversations we're beginning to have now.
can we identify that to get some federal assistance as a problem area? This is gonna kill people.
Right.
We've already come close.
You know, we've, at this point in time, I'm not available of any federal assistance that's available for these types of
Okay.
projects, but that's something that we certainly keep our ear to the ground on.
Okay.
Very good. I have a request here that when we're asking questions about this, because we've looked at a number of different areas, can you specify at least which area you're actually talking about while you ask the question? So, any other questions from the Deb?
I know you mentioned, let's see, a resident's petitioning to, process to implement infrastructure. Do you happen to have, any proposed options or plans, that you have in mind, like you did for the Blackley area, for those other areas that are missing infrastructure?
We don't have any plans currently in those areas. It would be more of a group of residents wanting to define a benefit district. Might like be one street on the maps that I showed you, that everybody who lives on that street is looking for some storm inlets and some storm sewer to be put in and discharged to the creek to the north. That could be a benefit district of 30 houses, and then those houses could split that cost over time. What happens is the city would design and build that type of project and then assess those costs back on the landowners.
Quick question related to that, Joe. So I generally understand the process, but if we're talking about a street, in order for that to occur, what percentage of the people on the street would need to say, yes, we're interested? And do you have a guess as to what type of cost that might increase their?
Yeah, the costs that I've seen on some of these projects is in the range of $30 to $50 a month is the type of numbers. Of course, it depends how many people and what the project is, but it's of that type of magnitude. It's usually a 15-year financing to smooth out the cost of the project to people. From a percentage participation, I think it's got to be at least more than half.
51% by either land area or number of property owners.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions from the DAB? And seeing none, we'll move out to the public. And if you'd like to go ahead and ask a question, we'd ask that you come up to the mic and state your name and address. And thank you very much.
Moses Williams, I stay at 3809 East 28th Street North. And you were showing on your charts there is an open field. It's on the north end of our neighborhood, between Oliver and Hillside. Chisholm Creek runs through there. And along the bike path, there's trees and debris in the creek that slows the flow down of the water. Is there anything about cleaning the creek, getting the trees?
Cleaning creeks, as you describe it, is quite often ends up being a FEMA regulatory project, also a Corps of Engineers project, so we have to look at those specifically as to what permits are required to do that work. If there's fallen down trees and things that our crew can address, and it's common public property, we can clean those things out. To the point of trying to do more dredging and widening of canals, it's a more complicated and more expensive situation to do, and it requires a lot of permits. So you have to look at them almost on a case-by-case basis.
Dave Cook, 435 South Oliver, 2 blocks up the street from Blackley. I know that neighborhood, you can get flooded out of there in an instant. But that's part of what happens when you develop a city. And you're looking at an awful lot of the issues of development. Special assessments are done when you're new in the neighborhood, they don't hurt. When you've been there for 20 years, special assessments are a killer. And the The developers are not going to pay any attention to that, you should know that. They wanna build something new, they wanna keep the city going, they're trying to build a city, and they just absolutely cannot stop and pay attention to special assessments that are gonna stop the projects. That's just how it is. I had something else in mind. The Bleckley and the coming down from Claude Lamb, again, that's development. When you're first moving into a neighborhood, when you're first building a city, I grew up in the Chisholm Creek neighborhood many years ago. That has changed so much, it's unreal. And it's expensive every inch of the way, because the poor folk that moved in there in the first place can't afford it anymore. And what do you do with it? So we've got to, that's kind of like Century 2, and what do we do with it now? We had an icon, and it was brilliant and marvelous, and now it's a waste. I don't know what to do with it. Anyhow.
I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but what I would add to that is new development is held to a much stricter standard today than old development. And old development I can't fix, the new development I'm putting a microscope on.
That's why, because the old developments weren't done right. You're learning.
Dan Ramsey, 1107 North Pinecrest. Am I correct in that all of your arrows are water flow directions? So the Dry Creek actually runs north at one point? That's not on this one. Does Dry Creek run, is there a watershed?
Yeah, that flows from south to north on those maps that I showed you.
Huh. Okay, so, do you know what was being done on 10th Street just north of Bleckley, and was that just to clean out a lot of mud and crap in there? Okay. And, are retention ponds designed to just temporarily slow the flow, or are they?
There are two words to his question, detention and retention. When you were in high school, you all got detention. But they let you go home. They detain you. Detention ponds do the very same thing. They detain the water, but then they let it go out as a trickle slowly. Retention ponds, on the other hand, can be part of the pond that is a permanent pool that's there for an aesthetic or water quality aspects. Well, that water's retained. We'll let that water go. That water's stuck right there. But in the modern stormwater design philosophy, a pond could be built on a subdivision that has standing water, so it's acting as a retention pond. But then it also provides detention. Water can be stacked above the normal pool elevation of the pond for some period of time to meet certain criteria to reduce the flow rate, and then it's allowed to go back down at a much less rate. And that's detention in a nutshell.
So the watershed is where, somewhere between 21st and 25th?
Well, most of that drains up to Chisholm Creek. I mean, for quite a bit of it from 25th north, I would think.
That goes towards Chisholm.
Goes
But
towards
it's Dry Creek that runs south.
Dry Creek runs south, and, I mean, your neighborhood is up here in the city. This area does run south past Kellogg and continues
So
on.
that's where it starts running south, basically.
Well, it's actually north. I mean, it's north of Claude Lamb Park. There's drainage up here that comes down, crosses 13th,
Okay.
right at Claude Lamb Park, and then continues on through this red rectangle, through Kellogg, and then points south.
Thank you very much.
How much time?
5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Okay, James Roseborough, 4518 Greenbrier. And I got some comments to say, then I got some questions. Don, Joe, I want to thank you for the work that you have done in the Northeast Heights neighborhood up there. Because you have done a good job. I don't know, Mr. Thompson, I know you run a dam, and maybe some others. remember when we had the problem on Holyoke Street? The people was complaining about the flooding now, they went in and fixed it. Gentry down by Brooks and Buckland School, Bluff Street, all in that area, you couldn't drive in that area if it rained very hard for flooding. Thank you for the work you've done. Now, we do have another problem. How many of you been on Hillside Street? Either going north or south, then if you're going north, you can't go through that. Back in the wintertime, we used to they had to bring bulldozers and things to move the ice off the road. They call this that, they fixed it. But we have a new problem. The water is starting to come back on that highway again, so I appreciate this opportunity to bring this forward today. And I think, huh? Between 21st Street all the way up to, I'm gonna say 37th Street, because the water go all the way uphill. Now, and something else, they're getting ready to start develop the property on 26th Street in Hillside. We approved that a couple of years back, but the funding one day, well, guess what? They're going to build, and that water's gonna come back on Hillside, and as I asked before, that water's gonna go north. More water into the Chisholm Creek. I will say this thing, I wanna thank you for the cleaning of the drainage there between Persian and the Dale Road. That claim, but we had some property owners that didn't want the city to come in and cross their property. Guys, if we're going to ask for this and what these improvements, we got to have all the neighborhoods involved. I want to thank you for the work you've done there on that and doing it. We do have, I know Lonnie's just talking about that, but we do have a problem at Chisholm Creek with the trees there in Mr. Williams asked a while ago. I don't know if you worked on this, Joey, you done, but we were told between Lost Acres and our neighborhood, 27th Street, to clean that drainage down there, we would have to remove the trees. The neighbors didn't want that. They want to keep that tree line in there, but that could cause problems. Now, development, everything in that area is wanting to be developed. All that water comes north. Going down, and we've lost residents down on 25th Street. Cars actually float down 25th Street when it rains hard coming from Dale Rose to Oliver. You might get swept out there in the highway from the water. That's how fast it is. And also the little creek that goes down that meanders into Chisholm Creek. That's what you're thinking about fixing. We want to thank you. We've had troubles with Dale Rose for a long time. So it is improving. I thank you for fixing Fountain. We don't know how that's gonna work yet, but I do have a question. On this end, are they going to rock that all the way down to stop the erosion? Because right at Fountain, and I guess I'm gonna say 27th Street, but it's actually not, it's probably Christie. Right in there, that's flooding in there. And so they did rock it. It looks good, got a big bend on that. But coming around there, that needs to be, is it gonna be rocked all the way down to the Chisholm Creek itself? Because if not, that's gonna erode as it's been eroding over time. Also, I know this is not your problem, but we got a problem with, Mr. Williams told me, we're seeing lights up there now. On Chisholm Creek, it's a wide section right off Bluff, and it makes the bend coming around. I don't know if it's people staying in there again or not, but that's the problem. So we do watch that area. It hasn't rained, eventually it's gonna rain. But we do know now that we can foresee problems on Hillside. It's possible we can see hill problems again off Holyoke and Fairmont Street. We've had that problem before where the water stands in there. Mr. Williams, you can correct me if I get these streets mixed up. Off Gentry, all in that area, going north, that could be a flooding problem. And I just want to thank you for the work you have done, to let you know that something's need to be done, and I appreciate you telling us about the cul-de-sac that's still going on Dale Rose. We thank you for that.
Thank you, Jen. This guy, you need to limit his time.
5 seconds.
2 seconds.
seconds.
Let's see what you got.
It's 5 seconds for each slide.
All right, time's up.
Man, and I was thinking we were gonna get out of here in good time.
Well, that's what we're finding there for me. I sent some of you some information, some slides here about the flooding and the issues we've had along with that, even with the improvements that they put in along the creek, cleaning out and all of this. The issue Joe's talking about, and we've had this discussion for years, is that the higher elevation, you talk about Wichita State and 21st up along that area, when you come up around Hillside and all that area, everything's a higher elevation, but it slopes back down to the Chisholm Trail Creek. All things in the Chisholm Trail Creek, right there. When you show from Hillside coming down there, you don't actually get drainage, you get almost to Greenbrier. It actually has drainage, and those drains dump into the Chisholm Trail Creek in here. So everything from Fountain to Hillside, the creek that runs behind Terrace, behind the Grove Apartments, all the work they did with the rocks and elevations and walls and stuff, it still all dumps into the creek. So guys, the big picture of things is, and the concern, I encourage, and want the development that's coming along on 21st Street, around the campus and stuff, even what the campus is doing, when you talk about the things that they do. So when you look at this is 21st Street coming across up this way up in here. On this side is WSU, and they got them big detention ponds. But they're holding the water in here, but they let it siphon off, and it comes underneath. It siphons off, comes under. All right, okay. Siphon off, goes under the street, 21st, dumps over to the homeowners association, their ponds. And when they get so full, it's got a thing to catch the overflow and dump it into the next pond, and it's got an overflow to dump it into the creek. And that creek runs on down there, runs under Greenbrier, and runs all back behind our houses and stuff as well, and ends up in the creek. So here's the crazy part. So it helps to slow it down, but it hasn't stopped it. With more development we have at those intersections, less porous areas with the apartments that are going in, and even those that they're building now, they're dumping into the street and just rushing it down there to the bridge where it's gonna dump into Chisholm Trail Creek. And if I go further up east in here, where we're doing development on 37th and up around Woodlawn, all those contribute to Chisholm Trail Creek, and it all comes down here. And so even cleaning this out, putting more drainage pipes and stuff that eventually all dump into the creek, it's gonna create a problem. So when I show you when the creek gets full, and it's gotten full, those contributories that dump into it, they have nowhere to go. Everything starts to bag back up in here. So when you show you the pictures in here, that's when they started to bag up Chisholm Trail Creek. When I show you the bike path, and the crazy part, that creek winds right up here around the borders of our neighborhood. And so it just, when it gets full, it floods back up into there, it creates a problem. The drainage pipes that go down through there, when you clean them out, it just contributes to it more. So we just got a lot of things that are going on. So adding more drainage pipes in here may help, but you gotta do something to take that water away. And so there's one you had, where's 96 at? So when we talk about those areas, here's 96 running up along here. So guys, when you talk about this is creek. This is all Chisholm Trail Creek. This is 96. These are homes. And you see how this creek comes in there and winds and follows up in here. So when this gets flooded, it's coming back this direction in here. It's not going back this way. So if you want to put some retention ponds, put them out here. And when the Corps of Engineers suggested coming across here, they would take out some trees, but it gives a straighter path and actually takes the water that's normally coming in here and puts it over there and takes it onto your canal, takes it away. So if you want to put something that's going to really help us, you got to help move that water away, even when we get torrential rains, so that it doesn't fill up. You got just open areas along here, close to your intersection there. Then run your canal, run your retention ponds where they eventually catch that water and bring it back in somewhere down here. But take it away from all these residentials that's happening here. Because guys, you see every week you're getting more proposals, more developments. is coming on. And Wichita State's a catalyst, that whole area is gonna grow. And when you go up to Greenbrier and coming down the Webb, they still dumping in the Chisholm Trail. And they're getting more development and stuff, so it's a bigger problem, because we're at the bottom, where all this water is coming down. And so we have to be really careful.
That's what your basement's for.
Well, I tell you, if you go over and allow those people down at the very end, over down by Brooks and all those there, ask them how many of them had problems with their basements. Because we just, behind us, just 2 years ago, and Joe, when we submitted 3 years ago, that whole area was in the 100-year flood zone. Everybody required flood insurance that lived in this area. We just finally got out of that with the remapping of the things. Now we're going to put us back into it, what we're doing, if we're not careful. Okay.
Hey, Joe, real quick, is that, the Chisholm Trail, is that state-owned or city-owned? The park area?
Chisholm Creek is a FEMA regulatory stream, and much of the flooding Lonnie is talking about is the floodplain of Chisholm Creek backs up into your northeast sides area. You almost have to get down to the bowels of it as to who owns it. It can be waters of the state, but it's not publicly owned, privately owned. It is publicly owned. It's property that the city would have some authority or jurisdiction over.
Okay.
Chisholm Creek, like other creeks, as far, take the water out of the equation, the land part of the creek, the channel and all of that runs with the private property, right? I mean, the creek itself is owned by the property, but it's a federally regulated stream in terms of water flow.
You're correct, Don. We'd have to do some research, but to your point, it could be privately owned. I mean, a lot of the creeks, the 3 ditches that I showed, the residents on either side own that ditch. It's their property. So for us to go on the creek and do some work, we're actually trespassing. So we need your permission. In the Chisholm Creek area, it's kind of the same thing. If you did a detailed property analysis, you might find that somebody does own to the middle of Chisholm Creek. It's their private property, so it can be a combination of answers.
Do you ever have any projects where we see unforeseen, where you see issues arising that you reach out to the property owners yourself to let them know that there's an issue that could be happening with their property? We would like to come in and do this or XYZ. Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Well, have you ever done it? Is it possible?
Well, your question, I think, is more related to privately owned ditches that we want to make sure are flowing. And a lot of times residents doesn't have the wherewithal to clean some of that out. We don't want to denude those creeks to take all the trees out. Someone mentioned before, when you get into some of these things, some people want you to take fallen all the way, other people say, stay the heck off my property. So it's a combination of, but it usually gets down to an issue of privately owned and how we get permission to do something.
Right, well, that didn't actually. So the question was, have you ever, I'm asking if you guys take the proactive steps of actually addressing or talking to the owners. Like, I understand what you said, it's up to the owner itself, but do you?
Maybe I can help clarify a little bit. Here's some of the work that we do where private creeks are involved. The city doesn't, in any circumstances, make improvements to those privately owned creeks or do any work. That's all contingent upon the landowner that owns the creek. It gets way too complicated, even if we have the funds to do that, which we don't. It's just too complicated because one private property owner might like their creek to look like a wilderness and the next one might not, and this and that and the other. And, but state law requires that the responsibility for those creeks run with the land. And so the city doesn't get involved with that. Now, you may have heard of some instances where the city has gone in and done some things in private creeks. And where we do that, it would be within 1,000 feet of city infrastructure, drainage inlets, bridges, and we would go in there within 1,000 feet of that and remove loose logs, things that had already fallen down. Because what we find frequently that happens is you get a big rain and it washes all that stuff up into a catch basin or a bridge. Our crews are out there in the middle of a storm trying to clear all that out. So that's why we will often seek the permission of property owners to go into those creeks and address those kinds of issues. So we would be advising some folks at that point in time, hey, this creek behind your house, you own that, that's your property, but there's some conditions here that could impact public infrastructure. We'd like to talk to you about that. So in terms of advisory capacity, we're limited to that. I don't know if that helps or not, or gets to what you were asking.
It does,
I
it
can-
gives me another question.
I can help you on that. In the past, did you notice me saying, asking people a while ago, if they come in to clean some of these drainage ditches into Chisholm Creek, to go on and give us the okay? But we have to get a petition signed from both sides of the street, on both sides of the creek. Now, we can get all the houses, but one house stopped the whole development that sit right in the middle of the curve of the creek. He didn't want to take down his sprinkler system.
I was asking more, what the city could do, not what the property owner, allows you to do. But your example, that did answer my question. Okay, so my thoughts are more, I'm thinking that, I don't know what an actual law is called, but if, like, your neighbor is, if what they're doing on their property causes a nuisance to you, is there anything like set in place for something like this? Like if you know what I mean? Like, is anybody know what I'm talking about? Like if, like say for instance,
eminent domain proceedings or something?
No.
I'm hearing the civil matter, but the property owner A has
Right.
done something that impacts the ability for property owner B next door to drain. Those are legal civil matters that I can't really address. We get those questions all the time, and it can be a sticky legal matter. As being good neighbors, you ought to try to do something that's not gonna mess up your neighbor's drainage, or you perpetuate some problem further downstream, so, but we see that a lot where it becomes a legal matter. To your other point, we have a long list of problems we know about. We don't have the resources to go looking for more, so we don't really proactively look for creeks that could have a problem. We usually get enough eyes and ears by the residents who live there to report to us that there's an issue we can work on.
Lonnie?
Well, I don't want the city to take the position that there's nothing that they can do. They're the ones who should start this conversation with our state governments and these things of nature. You should instigate that. We see on the news everywhere, these cities and stuff are getting flooded out in here, and the city trying to get involved in when it's come to that point of what can we do with them. People displaced and homes destroyed and all of this. Then the city wants to come and get involved. So I'm asking them to be our champion in talking to Corps of Engineers, saying, what can we do? Show us a plan. Bring that back to us of what we can do to help eliminate some of this problem in here. And who do we need to contact? What agencies, what government, whatever those entities are, to bring them to the table to show them we've got an imminent danger here. What can we collectively do to help them? And so I want you to be a champion and stop telling us about the legal ramifications, what we can't do. But I want you to do what we can do.
Quick question. Have you thought of trying something like what happened on Third Street? You've got a gully that just washes a lot of water real fast and it's gone from hillside down. You know what I'm talking about?
It's kind of a drainage flume,
Yeah,
concrete
it's a
flume.
drainage flow. It used to be a street.
Yeah, take out the street.
Could you build a street in there?
Uptown Neighborhood Association.
Depends on the area and how much room you have, but that can be a technique to help with some drainage issues. You just have to look at it.
It works on East-West Street.
Steve Polkey, number 3 Crestview Lakes Estates. Lonnie, and all this discussion has really set up my questions perfectly, so thank you very much. And Joe, just a couple things. When the Innovation Campus and everybody, you know, all the work that they did over here at WSU did really did help the average amount of water, especially when they dug under Oliver there and they took that water into their retention ponds off of the cemetery there to the east. That worked perfectly. All of this and all that area behind that retail space, all that's working really well. We knew that this was happening, and so what has happened in the process of all of that, when they were doing all of that work and everything, silt and dirt and everything else was basically flowing through here into this pond, which is our pond, and it basically cut this retention pond down by about a third with the big huge sandbar and everything else. So you were mentioning your 1,000 feet, and you were talking about benefit zones earlier. I think I can get every one of these 10 homeowners to say it's time for the city to come in here and open this pond back up a little bit to retain a little bit more water, take some of the issues, some of the flow back off of these valves to help some of that a little bit. And but then the only other thing I'll say is on your drawing here, you don't have any of the new storm inlets that they put here at the corner, plus they put on each side of the drives here to flow into that, which was also really helpful. And then I know, it may have been on your other drawings, but on this particular one, there are some inlets along here on all of between 25th and 21st that I counted that aren't showing up on, and they're on the east side of the street. And then the last question regarding Bleckley and the benefit zone, I guess, has anybody tried from a funding standpoint to get a benefit zone going along Bleckley? And how does Bleckley compare to any, is Bleckley the highest priority in the city versus maybe something like what happens at Maple and Mays or some of that stuff out west?
Yeah, I can touch on that. As far as the petition and the special assessments type project, those are neighborhood driven. And we've, furnished that information in the past to various neighborhoods. That's one of the things that we do proactively when, we hear about issues, is we go out and we talk and hear some things that you can do. And one of those is to petition in a project. Bleckley has never caught on in terms of, a benefit district and, the neighbors funding that because of, well, the cost, $35–40 million, and that's a lot of money. And what was the other part of your question?
How does Bleckley's, that 35–40 million, how does that, are there any other projects on tap like West Side, Maple and Mays, or any of these issues out there?
So yeah, Bleckley is the top priority. And when we look at these, I think Joe's got 50-something projects on the list. And so the way that we prioritize those projects, even though they're unfunded, if money wasn't an issue at all, and we could get those in time on however long it takes to manage those projects and do it, we prioritize them by risk. We have a risk matrix, and we take into consideration life safety issues, we take into consideration 100-year floodplain, and we take into consideration nuisance street flooding, the kind of street flooding where the water comes up. It may even be impassable for a short period of time, but it doesn't pose a life safety issue and it goes back down. So when you take all of those factors and put them together, then each project gets a risk score. And there are two of them that are at the top of the list. One of them is Bleckley, and then the other one I think is Murdoch and Wabash over by the hospital, right? And then they kind of all kind of trail down from there. Hope that helps a little bit.
Sure. Thank you.
When we talk about the insurance that's actually required for new 100-year flood zones, the people that are on Bleckley have to pay that. I don't know what they actually pay on an average monthly basis for that insurance. What neighborhood are we talking about there? And is there a possible way to take some of that funding that would be required there, and instead of paying insurance, kind of divert that towards something that would actually be to fix the problem instead?
Well, some of the benefit of the Bleckley project can remove people from the floodplain. You spent $35–40 million to do that, but that can be a side benefit in certain areas. The Bleckley area, I can visualize the floodplain map with the street and the front yard, and on some houses are in the floodplain, but the house is high and dry.
Right.
You just can't get off the property because the street's a lake. So, and then there are other properties where, the house is expected to flood when you get a 100-year storm. So it's kind of a combination of all of that. Now, if you're in the floodplain and you have a federally backed mortgage, you're required mandatorily to have flood insurance. If you paid your house off and you're in the middle of the floodplain, you don't have to have flood insurance. You probably should, I'm just saying it's not mandatory. But if you have a mortgage on it, and I tell people that, and the guy says, you know, I'm in the floodplain, but it doesn't bother me that much. I said, well, sir, consider this, someday you're gonna sell this property, you're gonna market it, and it's still in the floodplain. If you could take some actions to get out of the floodplain, sometimes that might be a survey, and the map's technically a little wrong, and you can argue with FEMA and get the house out of the floodplain. Now your house is more marketable, because to the next buyer, there's no floodplain on record.
Absolutely.
But there's always ways of trying to help properties relative to flooding.
But Joe, recognizing, and I'm picking up on what you're saying, people are spending a lot of money each month or each year
Right.
for flood insurance, and it doesn't solve anything.
Right.
Right, it doesn't fix a doggone thing. Joe, are you aware of any FEMA programs or other federal programs that kind of recognize that drain on the pocketbook, and if folks could just pool their resources and get out of the floodplain, they wouldn't need the insurance?
I don't know of a FEMA program that addresses that, but I like the idea. Where do you spend your money?
Is there opportunity zone money that could be rerouted somehow because of that burden on the land or on the homeowners that are lower income? I mean,
The federal opportunity zone?
yeah, I didn't.
They wouldn't touch that.
You know, the challenge with FEMA is, and it's frustrating, you know, you get a big devastating flood that comes through and wipes a bunch of houses away, then FEMA will step in with some money. And, you know, the city owns some lots that are vacant now. You know, here's some federal money, take those dollars, offer to buy them out. It's called a buyout. And so that's kind of how the FEMA program and how the federal dollars have worked in the past. You know, that didn't do anything to take anything out of the floodplain. It just ensures that no one builds there again. It's a frustrating issue, it really is. But I really like your point. That's a good one.
I just got a quick question, Joe. Some of the sidewalks, the city came back last month and they marked X ones, and I noticed you talked about replacing the sidewalks. Was that what that was for, to identify what maybe needs to be replaced, to stop water from going into some of the drainage ditches?
Well, yeah, typically our street crews will inspect sidewalks and they'll mark them in orange where they don't meet the standard. They're broken, they're chipped off, they're upheaved, they're not constant grade, they could be a tripping hazard. 100 different answers to your question. But then the repair crew knows where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do.
Who pays for that, the residents or the city?
Homeowner's liable, except in the case like where you're working with the lower income folks and the city decided to go ahead and pay some, right?
Right.
But
There's
I want to get an answer from him, so when I go to the meeting, I know the proper answer.
You better ask Gary what they've got going, Gary what they've got going on over there, and then get back to him.
Yeah, I don't have an answer on whose pocket it's coming out of. I know Stormwater has paid for a few, because it was right in proximity with our drainage inlet, and it was kind of a benefit to our structure system. But we'll have to get back to that, I don't know.
District blood grant?
Anything else?
This has been,
Is a retention pond?
I'm sorry,
How much is this one retention pond?
how much is one retention pond? Well, they're not all created equal, they're all in different sizes, depending on how much drainage
On
you're.
average, just on
Oh, on average, $100,000.
this has been good discussion. Any other questions? Otherwise, guys, thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into item 11, updates, issues, and reports.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah, well, you're sorry they have better news.
So Don, you want to lead us off?
Yes, this Saturday, we are hosting Books and Breakfast at French Quarters. It's 14th in Kansas. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, I'm sorry. But we are serving free breakfast. We have a book program running for the children as well as the adults with intentional messaging. So you can come and read about African American literature, some things you don't get in a regular education, as well as we are having special performances this Saturday for Black History Month. So come and join us. It's from 10 to 11:30 at French Quarters.
Flyers in the back.
Flyers in the back.
Very good. I don't have anything.
Happy Black History Month. Make sure you do your research every day to learn a new fact. Like Councilman Johnson said, many people don't know that the first sin actually took place here. So do your due diligence not only this month, but every day moving forward to learn something new about African American leaders who have paved the way for all of us.
Very good. This is we normally when we have you go ahead and give us, but you already gave that.
I
So
already did, but I did want to say, I'm really happy that Public Works came out. I've actually been talking with them about both of these areas for 2 years. And we're at a point now where we got a number for Bleckley, which is scary. And Northeast Heights, that presentation, that was actually my first time seeing that, but we've talked about it. And so this is a great opportunity to continue this conversation with the community about how to get this taken care of. And just a little bit more information. It's true that you can do an assessment. I really don't believe in that right now in both of these cases. So my goal is to find ways to fund this without having the homeowners have to pay too much. There may be some form of special assessment as an option to alleviate our pressure, but you heard about the restrictions on the stormwater fund. Our conversation right now is between stormwater, CIP, and general fund, and it's probably going to take a mixture of all of those and possible special assessment in both. But my goal is to get this issue solved with the least amount of impact to the homeowners. And hopefully here in the next couple of years, it's going to be a long process. It may outlast me, but I'm hoping that we can, at least get started on it. And it's some of the simple things with Bleckley, some of the things in Northeast Heights, but we will continue to talk with you all about that. And today was that first step in what Mr. Barnes talking about and kind of taking the lead on it. That's what today was. I asked Public Works to come out, and it's always a tough ask because they all work all day. They come out to a meeting like this, but we are going to look at all the options that we have and figure out who we need to reach out to and bring back solutions to everybody. So this won't be the last time you hear about this, but hopefully we can get some movement on it. So just wanted to address that. And again, it's always amazing to have staff come out knowledgeable, not tired, get everybody informed and engaged. So appreciate that. Government moves slow sometimes.
True. Dan, do you have anything? No. He said he did. Okay, very good. So,
And I just wanted to announce that, neighborhood cleanup applications are due in February. If you do not complete your neighborhood application, you will not get a cleanup, no exceptions past that deadline. So please tell any of your contacts if you participate in one.
What date is the deadline?
You'll please go back and check. I sent an email to all presidents, all homeowners associations, and I put it in the District 1 newsletter.
Actually, it passed.
very good.
March
Nice.
2nd, I got a phone call.
No, it's due in February. Someone said February 21st.
21st. Very good. So there is a motion. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Oh,
No, I'm just gonna say,
No.
We'll not be meeting this month, that's it, on the 27th, basketball game, so we gonna give it to them.
Okay. Very good. Is there a second? Second. Has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Everyone, thanks for a good meeting.